Seguim amb el programa de...
Let's continue with today's agenda. And now we will begin the first session that talks about the right to time in the era of AI. I would like to invite Marta Galceran Vercher, senior researcher of the program of global cities for CIDOB and the Global Observatory for AI. And I would also like to invite Ramon López de Mántaras, Badia, research professor at the CSIC and the AI Research Institute.
Benvingut.
Welcome, Ramon and Marta. Ramon, you've been studying and following AI development from very up close. Do you think that AI can lead to the eradication of time poverty at an individual level or collective level? Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for the invitation to join this interesting conversation. AI, that is such a big topic. Lately, we hear a lot about it. We listen to the promise that the AI will be the solution for everything. And there are people who say that technology is the solution for everything, and I do not agree with that. Because what they are trying to sell us is not real. They are playing with us. They are not being truthful about the potential of AI. And in times like this, where we are immersed in the culture of having to be very quick in everything. We need to produce and we need to discard at a very fast pace. And obviously, neoliberal capitalism, extremist capitalists are very interested in that. We need to grow, we need to grow. But I think we are in the wrong track. This growth is not sustainable. I would actually recommend that you read about the degrowth. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. And maybe it is not about degrowing, but just not growing anymore. And this worshipping of being fast, it is not new. Although the pace at which we are evolving at the moment is accelerating at tremendous speed, but it comes from the Industrial Revolution, the clocks that were in the different factories, and the watches and the clocks that you see in your workplace. But all this comes from the Industrial Revolution. But the 20th century added yet another layer of hastiness. And of course, there are very useful inventions. I do not want to go back in time, but we need common sense. All these new technologies are accelerating us even further. And in the 21st century, we have seen a digitization process that has not always been done in the proper way. And we are connected all the time. So we have maybe gone too far. And to make things even worse, I would say AI comes into play with the promises of making us more efficient, faster, more productive. And we are being told that we will save time, that we will be more happy thanks to the thanks to the artificial intelligence. And we hear absurdities like, well, you don't need to read books anymore because AI summarizes them for you. As if reading meant wasting time. Reading is thinking. And now with ChatGPT and such tools, we don't even write. To be faster, I don't know in what sense, but it turns out that writing is also thinking. Writing allows us to organize our ideas. And of course, first you need something interesting to say. And it is difficult to find something easy to say because you need to think a lot beforehand. But when you write, you need to think about how are you going to say what you want to say. And if we delegate that responsibility to a machine, we are on the wrong track. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. There's a recent article that was published in one of the most well-known journals, which is the Nature. Nature in Human Behavior is the complete title. And in that magazine, that journal, they study human conduct. And they recently published an article, evidence-based, that talks about how we lose our cognitive abilities if we delegate our writing to machines. And that leads us to making absurd decisions and statements. And I know of some cases of people who have used AI, Copilot, you may have heard of it. It is not only ChatGPT. And they allow you to program software faster. But the quality of what AI produces is mediocre. Easy things? Yes, they do it well. But when there is a more complicated task, you end up wasting time correcting the errors, and you spend more time correcting the machine than what it would have taken you if you were to do that thing from scratch. So the fact or the statement the AI is going to save time is false. Darren Acemoglu, the economist that received the Nobel Prize in 2024, has an article about that in which he proves very clearly that an increase in productivity in the coming 10 years will be 0.08%, 0.0.7 or 0.08 in 10 years. Sorry, per year during 10 years. So that goes against everything that we are being told by the big tech companies and those who have an interest in that sector and that have an interest in selling us AI as a solution for everything. And I think I will leave it at that because I tend to talk and talk. So maybe I will keep some thoughts for later. But I do want to talk about work slop. This is a new terminology, work slop. And we can further discuss what it is later, but there is some evidence already that we are generating this work slop. Thank you, Ramon. Marta, you have also followed very closely AI development. Do you think that at a city level, the current applications of AI can improve the life in the cities? Well, first, I would like to thank the organizers of Time Use Week for inviting me and CIDOB. And I would like to begin by saying that I am not an optimist either. So maybe this will be an inspiration for improving in the future. Maybe we need a more paused debate about AI. Regarding the link between cities and AI, it's a link that makes sense, because when you Google AI and cities, what do you find? Well, you can find millions of reports that say that AI will make it possible for urban solutions to have more benefits for the citizens, because it will improve waste management, water consumption, noise reduction, and so on. This is an example of a report published by the European Commission. And other reports say AI will allow cities to be more efficient and in a better way. And I would say in a better way, yes, but quicker and more efficiently, I question that, because sometimes efficiency and over-efficiency has underlying costs that we do not keep in mind. But this is a discourse that is very linked to this idea of that technology is going to be the solution for everything. And sometimes I do think that, but we need to keep in mind that we need to optimize resources, and time is one of those resources that we need to optimize. And here I want to maybe play both sides and be an optimist and a pessimist at the same time. It is true that different administrations locally and regionally do use AI, and it can help save some time. But we need to look at what time we lose or we gain with AI. Why do we want more time? Well, more time to use services in the city. And it would be great if services were to be accessed quicker, because time is money in that case. And let me make an aside here. It is very difficult to measure how AI impacts on our time, because AI is used in robotics, in sensors, and so on. So we need to also keep in mind where AI is being used. AI is not a single thing, it is many things. So we need to measure all that. And to continue with what I was saying before, time that our citizens use in dealing with the administration. We have chatbots, but chatbots need supervision. We need to think about what can be left for the chatbots to manage, and what cannot be left for the chatbots to manage. But also time, generally speaking, that we need to move around the city. And many different administrations are, for example, investing in having more efficient transit maps for the citizens to know the best way to go somewhere by saving time. Sometimes the route suggested does not make sense. But if I continue thinking about time, I also think about time that people working in the local administration need in order to perform their tasks. And it is not only a matter of the time they need, but the quality of the time. AI will allow us, for example, to reduce repetitive and boring tasks, and we will have more time for more creative and added value tasks. And there are many studies that say that it is not the case all the time. And what is the main problem? Well, I think that when we talk about time, productivity, and cities, I think that when we talk about this, we are very focused in the short term. We may save some time here and there, but it is not a solution for the structural problem that we have when it comes to time. And at the same time, these very specific AI applications hide the fact that sometimes our citizens and the local administration end up spending a long time correcting AI mistakes. For example, if it needs supervision, you need to invest time in supervising the task, because we do not have guarantees that what AI is doing is fully correct. There are very few use cases in which you can take at face value what AI is producing. So you need time to monitor, you need time sometimes to undo AI mistakes. And if we're talking about small mistakes, okay, but sometimes we're talking about major errors, major mistakes, and you end up spending more time fixing that. And you also need time to deal with the problem of using AI. An example is fake news that have an impact, but also vulnerability. And you need to invest more time in fixing errors created by AI, but also problems that come with the use of AI. And another side here, when we talk about AI and cities, we tend to think about the local administration, but AI also has an impact on people who live in the city. For example, AI is facilitating or making possible some work environments in which there is more time poverty. For example, 24-hour ordering services for food. And that is not rational at all. And this is a very specific, this is an urban business, I would say. We have the problem with the riders that deliver the food, for example, and that schedule, that 24-hour schedule, has an impact on the mental health of those workers. And they do not have time or may not have time to care for their own people. So are we really saving time, or are we redistributing it and we are not being fair in that redistribution? Not only in our cities, but in the region, if we look at it holistically. And AI is not magic. We need energy. We need human resources as well. Let me give you a very clear example. I think Amazon invented the just walk out concept, in which you didn't need to stop at a cash register when getting out of the supermarket. You just walked out the door, and that allowed you to save 1-2 minutes. We are talking about a very small amount of time that you would save. But then it was proved that it was not truly completely humanless, because it was discovered that there were a group of workers in India who were managing all that. So that is not truly saving time. And for example, labeling. Many algorithms need a lot of people tagging and labeling content, and that needs a lot of human power. And we're talking about tagging or labeling as simple as dog, cat, house, but we also have cases of more sensitive content that needs to be labeled or tagged. If I may add something here, there's a report by the World Bank that estimates that between 150 and 330 million people in the global south are working in very poor conditions in sweatshops, earning less than $5 or $6 per day in Kenya, India, and even prisoners in Finland. So it is not only the global south. In the north, we're talking about people who are imprisoned. So imprisoned people in the north and people in the global south. And without them, we could not use ChatGPT, to put it plainly. We would not be able to use ChatGPT at all. AI is not magic. AI is not even intelligent. And it is not even artificial. Artificial, what if it were fully artificial, then would we need 400 million people making small adjustments and entering data into it, saying this is a traffic light, this is a dog, this is a cat, blah, blah, blah. Would we need someone moderating the content hours and hours a day, looking at terrible images? We cannot even imagine what they have to watch. I don't even want to describe what people have to filter, and that lead to mental health problems. And all that is what supports this allegedly artificial intelligence.
I mean, sure, it's supposed to create a lot of employment. Yeah. 330 jobs, according to the World Bank. But what kind of jobs? I mean, really, you can keep those jobs. We just can't work this way. We really need to learn to praise slowness. We need to go on digital diets. Please go on a digital diet. We've got to do something about this. We can't keep this up. Do you know Cathy O'Neill's book, Weapons of Mass Destruction? Not destruction? Oh, distraction. Weapons of Mass Distraction, that's what it's called. So it's about all the devices that we all carry. But AI makes this even worse. I mean, it's got us hooked. We're being monetized all the time. Big tech wants us to spend as many hours as possible hooked on their devices. So I have a series of practices that I can recommend by way of digital dieting. Don't be using your phone all the time. Set it aside. When I go shopping, I leave my cell phone at home. I don't go shopping with my cell phone. Spend at least 1 hour a day reading on paper. I don't want you reading off a screen, because there are studies that also show, studies by Eric Deana, a French scientist, that show that we learn and remember a lot better when we read off paper rather than off a screen, and when we use pen and paper to write rather than typing. That is something that's been definitely proven. And when you're walking around the street, don't wear headphones. Let the world reach your senses directly. And as for writing, handwriting, please write things by hand. I do take notes, and then I eventually type them and use them. But I start out handwriting. I wrote my book on artificial intelligence with a pen and paper. Obviously, I couldn't deliver it to the publishing house in that format. But my notes are always handwritten. Please go on a digital diet. You'll be much happier. This is in praise of slowness. We cannot keep up this constant acceleration we're engaged in. If I may, when I was preparing for this debate, I was looking up time uses in local governments. There are studies, in fact, that show that the time you save in drafting a meeting summary is compensated or is offset by digital distraction time. In other words, yes, you might gain time thanks to digital tools, but there's time that we're wasting because it's not actually giving us anything. So maybe, yeah, we need to go on a digital diet or need to implement digital hygiene measures, but it's true. And then there's also the matter of time allocation between the rich and the poor, between the global south and the global north, things that you stop doing. I mean, right now we're talking about AI, but it's a constant, a permanent debate about technology at large. It's not just AI. I mean, we have more and more tools than we ever had, and we're more time poor than we ever were. So you don't need to be an engineer or a neuroscientist to notice this. So that should lead us to consider, you know, if we're so concerned about time efficiency, well, then what do we want to be time efficient for? You know, shouldn't we also care about doing things well? This concern over immediacy and speed is not all. Thank you very much. So now the floor is open. If you have any questions or any comments for this debate, you can raise your hands. Okay. In that case, to wind up, Ramon and Marta, what do we need to do? What do we need to implement to ensure that AI will help us recover time? Well, now, I don't want to demonize AI. Don't misinterpret me. Don't get me wrong. I'm no Luddite. I've been working on AI since 1975, mind you. I mean, that's what I devoted my life to, so don't get me wrong. What can we do? Well, you mentioned, you know, going on a digital diet. I mean, there's lots of stuff that's common sense. Common sense is the key phrase here. AI, like any other technology, requires us to apply critical thinking, critical attitudes, and moral and common sense, and also our moral sense, our sense of morals. We need to use it cautiously. We need to consider whether we really need it. You know, if I have a report to write up or an email to write, do I really need ChatGPT to draft a 4-line email for me? Do we really need that? I don't think so. Some things are absolutely absurd, and this has been documented. There was an employee who had to send his supervisor a report. So the employee wrote up an outline with items, okay? Instead of writing it up directly, he entered the items and asked ChatGPT to provide a verbose version. So 3 or 4 pages with plenty of sycophantic talk, terrible, from ChatGPT. And so what does the supervisor do with that 4-page report? 4 pages. I don't have enough time for this. So ChatGPT turned this into separate bullet points, into items. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. I mean, we can reach these extremes when we don't use our common sense in using technology. So we need common sense and critical thinking. Marta. Well, again, I don't want to demonize technology, but my first recommendation is that governments shouldn't be focusing on saving time as their priority when they deploy AI. I mean, there are tools that can help us compile information, that can help us consider new urban planning interventions. I mean, AI has plenty of really interesting applications. But maybe efficiency, time savings should not be the guiding concern and the leading concern in making this choice. And then we also need to think of sustainability when we use these tools, sustainability in the broader sense. So this is the problem I want to solve. Question number one, do I need technology to address this question? Sometimes I don't. Secondly, do I need AI in order to achieve this? Maybe not. And then, as I said, AI has plenty of wonderful implementations. But if the answer is yes, we also need to think about who will win out and who will lose out if I use AI. Think of the human resources involved. Think of the environmental resources involved. There's also the environmental cost. I mean, we're spending so much time talking and thinking about climate change, of how to address climate change, and we have data centers that use up water and energy and you name it. So who and what is winning out and losing out? So when we analyze the cost of AI, we shouldn't be thinking just in terms of, I just saved a whole minute and, oh, wow, I came up with these wonderful, lovely synonyms that I could never have come up with even after reading all of Shakespeare's works. I mean, again, ultimately, it's a matter of common sense. I absolutely agree with what Ramon just mentioned. Common sense. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of this session. Thank you very much, Ramon and Marta. So we've reached the end of this.